Today's video is brought to you by AlmostHeaven.com. Handcrafting at-home saunas since 1977. Want better sleep, less stress, and faster recovery? Now's the perfect time. Shop saunas, cold plunges, hybrids, and accessories. Use our exclusive code at checkout to save 5%. Link below.
Bo, you and I just listened to a quote that in this day and age, we are drowning in information. But the problem that many of us have is utilizing and taking action on that information and the whole concept of wisdom. Let's talk about wisdom today and how we can apply what we've learned.
Dave, and specifically, I want to differentiate between knowledge and wisdom. And as you just so eloquently put, knowledge is widely available today thanks to the internet. It is literally accessible at our fingertips. Google, Siri, all these voice-assisted programs, they know any answer to any question that you give them. And if they don't know, then Wikipedia knows. So it's not for a lack of resources that we do not have wisdom. Again, we're talking knowledge right now. Knowledge is simply information. You know, Dave, I was actually at a conference yesterday, and I heard a gentleman state a quote that absolutely knocked my socks off. He said, in the year 2015 alone, we as a human race will produce more new information than the previous 500 years combined. Now, let me say that again. In 2015, we as a human race will produce more new information than the previous 500 years combined. That knocked my socks off. So we're certainly not hurting for resources, for new information, for knowledge. I think where we fall short, which is the topic of our conversation today, is implementing what it is that we take in. And wisdom is the actual doing. You know, there is a thought leader today and also a pastor of a mega church by the name of Andy Stanley, who begins every single message with, Lord, give me the wisdom to know what to do with what I've just heard, and then the courage to do it. So wisdom is the application of what it is that we are learning. Statistics tell us that the longer we go before doing something with what we just heard without doing anything at all, the less likely it becomes that we will do anything at all. Let's just take the convention industry in general. And here's another interesting statistic that I heard yesterday. In any given week, in any given city across the country, there is some type of trade show or convention or seminar going on. Less than 4% of all participants do anything or implement anything that they learn during their 2, 3, 4, sometimes even 5-day long conventions. Think about the millions of dollars that are lost in event planning and bringing people together with the intended result of productivity, increased efficiency, how to get things done faster, where these people are none the wiser because they never even do anything with what it is that they took the time, energy, money to go and acquire. So knowledge is taking it in, but wisdom is doing something with what it is that you just took in.
There's a very influential social media marketer, a businessman named Gary Vaynerchuk, who I listen to quite a bit. And one thing he said, and I love the concept, is that ideas are crap. I can give you all the ideas in the world, but it's the taking action of that is really the key. If I can give you all the free information I want to you, but I know that you're not going to do anything about it, so I'm going to outwork you. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it because I know you won't. And you just made a comment that 96% of us won't. Therefore, if you take action, you have a better chance of succeeding than the person who also heard the same information. And just the idea of, here it is, do with what you want with it, but I don't think you will. So here you go.
Absolutely. And, that's a great point that you bring up. Some of the most successful figures in entrepreneurship today who run any type of business online are in the business of giving away quality content in order to capture the attention of their audience. It establishes credibility, it establishes trust, it gives them a space to create somewhat of an authority on the subject matter it is they're presenting. And chances are that the most successful people that we can think of, Tony Robbins being one that we just discussed earlier, he's confident that he can give away the first 5 chapters of his 15-chapter book because people are going to read it, they're going to get inspired, they're going to have that warm, fuzzy, feel-good feeling, but then the next day they're going to be on to the next thing because we often confuse the urgent with the important. Let's just take the example of our email inbox. When surveyed, 40% of business people in this day and age respond immediately to an incoming email. It takes on average 12 minutes for us to re-engage with what it is we are interacting with before we stopped to answer that email. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, responding to emails, but if you can tell yourself that I am going to check emails at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. so as not to lose focus of what it is you're doing during the day. In other words, keep your mind set on the important and not be distracted by the urgent. Because you think about it, Dave, anything can be urgent. It's what you choose to keep on your immediate radar, front and center, which is what you choose to do in content creation, what it is that makes you good, that you are ready to roll out to the world in the form of your multimedia. That's what's important. That's what has to get done. And that is what keeps you from reacting in the moment to the urgent. Again, it's information which anyone can have, accessible at our fingertips, and it's wisdom, which is actually taking that information and doing something with it. And not only doing something with it once, but doing something with it over and over and over again, because productivity is based on repetition, and the easier it becomes, the more repetitive it becomes, the easier it becomes. I write about this in chapter 2 of my book, is that once we've identified our potential, in other words, the difference between where we are now and where we want to be, the very next step that has to happen quickly is for us to go after it, to go pursue it, as I put it. Because if we just keep it up in our mind, back to your point, and it only stays as an idea, ideas are worthless. The world is filled with brilliant ideas that never get implemented. And ultimately, we sell ourselves short when we do not pursue this knowledge that we are acquiring, which makes us wise. It separates us from the crowd.
I feel like in everyday life, my conversations mirror yours. So I feel like I'm constantly quoting Bo Parrish because there is another idea out there that, this whole thing about ideas and reinventing the wheel. And I was talking to my wife recently and I saw something online that I wanted to somewhat mimic. And she goes, don't feel bad that you're going to copy them because you're not going to reinvent the wheel with your concept. Do what they do, but make it your own, because be yourself. That's what's going to stand out in this noisy world of ours. And that's my quote was going to be that you've told me from somebody else, is that be yourself because everyone else is taken. What you do is representative of who you are, and you're going to have your own spin. So the knowledge that we're all presented with at these conferences or these talks or these information products that we read and write and follow, yeah, they're all the same. If they're the same idea, you're going to have your own take on it. You're going to have your own unique perspective, which makes your idea your own. Make sense?
Absolutely. And you do that perfectly in your Everyman Driver video reviews with your crazy, funny facial expressions. And the way that you put camera angles on various aspects of the car. And that's unique. That's you. That's Everyman Driver. And it's why you have such a huge following.
And I'm not doing something original in terms of creating in my example, car reviews. I've taken the concept or the blueprint from somebody else, but over time, I've created my own identity. And same thing with what we take away from talks or from your book example. You have lived this life, and finally, understanding that this path, there is no path to perfection, but we have to have a purpose out there, and that is your purpose. And now you've laid the groundwork. Here is a path that I have taken. Make it your own.
Absolutely, because if my work, the work that I do, does not leave an impression on someone within my immediate surrounding that gives them the confidence that they too can pursue what it is they were created for. Again, my personal mission statement, I highly recommend that everyone have a personal mission statement, is to encourage others to see change as a blessing and not a burden. Because we as a human race, we resist anything that resembles uncomfort. Comfort is entirely highly overrated. We trade what's comfortable for what could be. And that's where we fall short time and time and time again. We prefer routine to risk because we don't know what lies on the other side of risk. We would rather be comfortable than go after the unknown. And I believe you was the unknown that we spoke about. So
I believe it.
Again, it's just life. We're not blazing a trail with any brand new information. We're simply putting it in a conversational tone in a way that we hope is easily accessible by those who are choosing to listen.
And on a note that you said, and this is just probably not off topic, but productivity and important versus urgent. Another good friend of ours who's also very influential in the world of social media, but also health and fitness, is Ben Greenfield. And Ben Greenfield has at the bottom of his emails, I check email twice a day, at beginning of the day and the end of the day. And that's what he has as his regular signature. And this guy is a very busy man, and he has to be efficient with his time. So your idea of, let people know this is what my schedule is, and I'm only going to respond in the manner that fits my life because I'm taking action.
There's no question. And you let me just address a specific word that you said. Expectations are everything. You think about any time there's a difference between an expectation and an actual experience, okay? Anytime there's a difference between our expectations and what it is we actually experience, there's going to be what we call a surprise. Now, some surprises are good, some surprises are bad. So why not close that gap by matching the expectation to the experience? Dave, if I send you an email and I can see in your signature line that you only respond twice a day, well, I won't expect to get a reply from you until that time or later. Again, it's giving your audience a chance to understand your system. That way they do not, because one of the most frustrating and absolutely trapping components of life is having to own up to expectations that are absolutely impossible or that are unknown. If you do not know what others expect of you, or they do not know what you expect of them, then you're walking around on eggshells. It's crazy.
I understand that in this endurance alphabet talk that we've been doing, that we had to think of something for W, but is there something that stood out to you with the idea of people not taking the knowledge or information that you're presenting and using it wisely?
Well, so I think the wisdom actually comes in using it. Now, when you use what it is that you've just learned, it doesn't mean it's going to work out. And as we've discussed previously in a conversation, failure is actually fine as long as it's not final. Matter of fact, failure is a sign that you're moving in the right direction. Doesn't mean you cannot leave the laboratory. It may need tweaking. You need to do it a little bit differently, but the concept here, the key factor is doing. You're doing and doing and doing. You're tweaking, you're improving, you're doing little things, you're doing big things, but you're doing something with it rather than just sitting on it or letting it going in one ear and out the other. It's the learning and doing. The result we can't always control, particularly with the first attempt, until we actually know the outcome. From there, we can adjust the way we pursue it in order to ensure that it improves that next time and the next time and the next time. It's incremental progress that moves your purpose along the path to wisdom.
We have about 4 more minutes left in this segment. I know that you do a number of talks around the country, whether they're keynotes, motivational speeches to high school students, and I'm curious from your point of view, which audiences are more likely to take action from your talks and use your information wisely? Is it the high school students? Are they as receptive as a room full of established 40-something-year-old business people? What have you found?
Well, so, and that's a great spot. I would actually say the sweet spot of my audience, and the way I determine that is anytime I get invited to speak somewhere, I contact the event planner and I ask for one specific question as if my talk has already occurred. And let's just say you were calling me to ask me to come in to speak to your organization. And I would ask you one question. I would say, Dave, if you and I were to sit down on the Monday following the event that I spoke at, what would have had to come out of my mouth for you to assess the occasion as a tremendous success? What specific action would you see on the part of your organization that was a direct result of the words that came out of my mouth? So again, I'm trying to listen to you shape the outcome that gives me a chance to influence before I even walk into the situation. Having a knowledge of the crowd and what the specific need is makes me a more effective speaker. And so, I would say to answer your question, it's going to be the entrepreneurial, independent advisors who are not attached to the Merrill Lynch's, the UBS's, the Wells Fargo, the evil empire per se. It are the firms that have a little bit more leeway, that are smaller, that are open to innovation, that have access to more compliance-free regulation to where they truly own the client relationship. And the fact of the matter is the investment industry is being attacked by what we call the robo-advisor, which is the traditional business model that exists with investments is what's called buy and hold. It's what mutual funds were predicated on. 30 years ago, if you bought something and just held on to it long enough, you would be okay because markets go up, markets go down. But today, everything that a human being had to be present in order to facilitate can now be accomplished online. You can literally get the exact same thing that you could 30 years ago from a person today on Schwab.com, on MarketWriters.com, on SigFig.com. So the message that I'm preaching is your route to stand out. What is it that you're doing that every other advisor on the street is not? Because if you have to compete solely on the basis of price, you're going to be out of a job. So if you can't do something for your client that they can already do for themselves, you're going to get fired. It's only a matter of time. You never compete with a computer. Computers do not need sleep. They do not need food. And all they do is answer commands that are given. So that is my ideal audience. And the way that I always begin each conversation is, guys, ladies and gentlemen, the worst thing that could possibly happen today is for you to leave this time together not knowing exactly what to do with what you've just heard, as we define that as wisdom. Knowing what to do with what you've heard and then having the courage to actually do it.
Bo Parrish, always able to put a bow on it. That was a great way to wrap it up.
Looking for a great at-home sauna at a great price? Get 5% off any indoor or outdoor sauna, cold plunge, or infrared sauna from Almost Heaven with my discount code DAVE, 5% off at checkout. For over 40 years, Almost Heaven saunas have been trusted as the top American home sauna manufacturer. Almost Heaven saunas deliver high-quality products and firmly stands behind the holistic benefits the sauna brings to your mind and your body. Again, get 5% off any order with my discount code DAVE, 5% off at almostheaven.com. There's also a direct link below this video.